Hello and welcome to another edition of Nook News. I'm Beth Hadfield, the Activity Coordinator at the Center for Active Living in Plymouth. And today's subject is elder abuse. Before I introduce my guest, I actually wanted to read the definition from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention on what elder abuse is. It is an intentional act or a failure to act by a caregiver or another person in a relationship involving an expectation of trust that causes or creates a risk of harm to an older adult. An older adult is defined as someone who is 60 years or older. Today I have with me Terry Quartz. She works at Protective Services and the Money Management Program at Old Colony Elder Services. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Terry works with seniors that have been abused or being... I'm going to let you explain what you do.
Protective Services is investigating reports of alleged abuse, neglect, financial exploitation, or sexual abuse, or self-neglect of an elder that's 60 or over that resides primarily in our community. The communities we cover are 23 towns, including Plymouth, and anybody can file a report. Anybody who's concerned about an elder, we ask that they do file a report with the 1-800 number, which is the centralized intake. They take intakes for the whole state of Massachusetts. So we can talk a little bit more about what that process is, but we investigate elder abuse and neglect.
Okay. Having said that, there are lots of forms of abuse.
Yes.
So what I thought is we could go through each one and we could describe a little bit about what someone might see if they came upon someone who they thought was being abused. What would be described as physical abuse?
Physical abuse, you may see signs and symptoms of bruising or unexplained injuries. You could see hand marks or grab marks. Like I said, any kind of injury that, the story doesn't really match up with the injury. For emotional abuse, you may see in conjunction with any of the other allegations, somebody yelling and screaming at an elder, calling them names, putting them down and making them feel bad. Want me to just keep going?
Yeah.
Neglect could be an elder that isn't getting appropriate care. It could be supervision or personal care, proper medications or medical care. It can run the gamut in terms of them getting their day-to-day needs met, which could be, creating a risk or potential risk for harm for neglect. Financial exploitation, an elder that, there's unexplained loss of assets or money being taken. The ATM machine is being utilized quite frequently because they force the elder to give them their PIN code. It could be checks written out and forged, credit cards being charged that they don't consent to. It could be that they are making them or asking constantly for money, and the elder is on a fixed income and doesn't have the money or funds to provide it to their family member.
I think that's everything.
The only one I missed is probably sexual abuse and self-neglect. Sexual abuse could be, unwanted touching or harmful, practices in terms of personal care. An elder that, doesn't want to be in that kind of relationship with somebody. We do see that. And self-neglect is when an elder is not taking care of themselves, not providing medical care for themselves, or, driving unsafely. They could have substance abuse issues, untreated mental illness, or hoarding issues.
So with self-neglect, is that self-abuse then?
Yeah. It's them not taking care of themselves and not meeting their day-to-day needs, and that creates a risk for them, and that is mandated to report.
So in that situation, what can you do to help an elder who is choosing not to take care of themselves?
A lot of it is about education and trying to get them to understand the risk that it could create for them, to get them to accept services or intervention so that they can be happier and safe in their home.
Makes sense. Makes sense. While we were talking about how our show would run today, we talked about that you actually interview some people, but some people you interview, some people you don't.
Correct.
So if I got on the phone and placed a call to the 1-800 number, what happens next?
The 1-800 number, you call in the Elder Abuse Hotline, which is the centralized intake unit for the state of Massachusetts, and they're going to take the information from you. They're going to ask all kinds of questions to try and figure out what is going on with that situation, what made you call in a report today, what kind of history that you might know about in terms of the circumstances. Is this a first-time incident? Trying to figure out the level of risk for that consumer. They're going to take the intake, and then the intake gets sent to the local protective service agency that covers that area in which the elder resides. So for, again, Old Colony, we cover 23 towns. So we get the intakes from centralized intake and we screen them. And we make a determination, is it a reportable condition of abuse and neglect? If it is considered to be reportable, then we would screen that intake in and assign it to a protective service worker to do an investigation and assessment. So part of that process is then, we assign a certain level of screening to that, which tells the worker how quickly they need to get out and see that consumer to figure out what they can do to help.
So you said what level of screening? So obviously 3 levels?
Yes.
More than 3 levels?
It's 3 levels.
3 levels,
Yep.
okay.
We have a certain amount of time in which we have to respond to
So
that intake.
high risk would be an immediate,
Yep.
someone you would need to immediately go out and try and reach or
Yes.
reach out to.
Yes.
Do you always go to the home when you reach out to someone?
No, sometimes the emergency response could be a phone call. It could be meeting the consumer at the Council on Aging or in a public place. The hospitals, sometimes they see them in adult day health centers. Sometimes if the consumer is mobile and able and still drives, they can come to the office for that interview. So the goal is to get access to that person free from influence and be able to conduct that interview, to determine what the situation is and what's going on.
If you deem that it is as dangerous as the level it's been given, do you immediately take someone out of the home?
No. In terms of those types of situations, we assess the risk prior to going in, gather as much information as possible prior to going in. Sometimes it will require us going out with the police for safety reasons for the consumer as well as the worker. If the situation rises to that high risk level, then yes, there could be an intervention that we do recommend the person get a medical evaluation at the hospital or offer them immediate resources for placement to get them out of that abusive situation. But we don't go that most restrictive is what we call. We say least restrictive to most restrictive in terms of the program, try and figure out what it is that the consumer is going to accept for assistance and help, and work with them on a service plan to determine what can we do.
Can you tell us how many reports of abuse have been reported? I don't know how you do it. Is it for the state or just our area?
I think I have both. For the state of Massachusetts, over 30,000 reports were received the last fiscal year for elder abuse. For Old Colony, the last fiscal year, I believe we had 1,997 reports filed specifically to our area on elder abuse. Yeah.
I can't even.
It's astonishing. It is
astonishing.
And, I mean, the statistics also show us that it is underreported and a hidden crime. It is not a lot of people. Sometimes people still don't know that protective services exist for our elders, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to come on the show to let people know that we're here and we're here to help and see what we can do.
How would you educate the community to pick up the signs? I mean, we talk about them, but are there certain things that you might say to someone that if they're sort of questioning that something isn't right, but you don't want to always think someone maybe has a memory loss or something. So what can people look for so that, if they're noticing a change in someone, they know what kind of signs they're looking for?
There's 2 things I would suggest. If somebody thinks that something's not right and they see something, say something. We ask that people file a report, consult with us. If you're not sure about something, run the situation by us. We're happy to consult on cases where people aren't sure and offer suggestions in terms of what the situation may look like. Sometimes it may be that services are needed in a self-neglect case prior to a report being filed in protective services. Some of the signs and symptoms that I would ask people to look for is a change of behavior. You know, an elder is key in terms of, a lot of times they have a routine, and when something changes with that routine, whether it be, like you said, maybe a cognitive deficit or something else going on, is the sign or symptom that something's going on. You know, if they go to the bank all the time, or if they go to the same grocery store all the time, and then for some reason you see that their personal care looks different, or they maybe, you know, seem like they're fearful or afraid around somebody, or somebody is talking for them. Those are some of the signs and symptoms that we would look for somebody to say, wait a second, something's not right here. Let's talk about it, let's file a report and see if we can get some assistance.
If your neighbor files a report because they think something's not right, does the consumer find out that the neighbor filed the report, or your friend, whomever?
No, the name of the reporter is kept confidential. We're not allowed by law to reveal that to anybody. The only person that is privileged to get that information is the district attorney's office. If we file a report, or when we refer to the district attorney's office in those serious abuse, neglect, financial exploitation, or sexual abuse cases, we have to share that information with them, but we cannot share it with anybody else. So when someone says, you know, tell me who reported, can you tell me who reported? We say we can't confirm or deny that, you know, that's confidential. Part of the reporting process is to protect the reporter, so that people file reports, you know. There's certain people who have to file reports, they're mandated reporting. Social workers, nurses, doctors, home health aides, you know, they're all mandated to report to protective services if they see or suspect that there's elder abuse, neglect going on.
Okay. This sign here, it's very important, and it means a lot, not only to you at Old Colony Elder Services, but to me also, being at the Council on Aging. And now it has become an annual event that every year we bring awareness to this subject because of what you said earlier. See something, say something.
Yeah.
So how do we encourage more people to say something?
Well, I think that, you know, the march against elder abuse and us coming on the show and just continuing to do outreach to let people know that it's okay to say something when you're concerned. You know, people, you know, will have that gut feeling like, I think something's going on and I'm observing, you know, X, Y, and Z. Talk to somebody about it. You know, we want people to get to know their neighbors and get to know when something is not right so that we can intervene. If we don't know about it, how can we help? And our elders deserve to live in their home as long as possible, as safe as possible, with dignity, you know? That's one of the goals of Old Colony, and it's one of the reasons why we continue to do this.
They earned it.
Yeah.
They earned it.
Absolutely.
They did everything they needed to for their families. Now it's their turn.
Exactly.
So at our center, our mandated reporters are both our social outreach workers and Jennifer, I believe.
Yep.
So if someone in our community saw this and wasn't sure what to do, they could come to the center and actually meet with April or Andrea or Jennifer and be able to talk to someone first before they took that next step. So I know you brought a shirt with you, and on June 21st, we are doing our annual March for Elder Abuse Awareness. The actual day is June 15th, but in Plymouth, we are marching down at the waterfront on Thursday, June 21st at 11 a.m. And we are marching to do exactly what Terry and I are sitting here talking about, is to raise awareness. We want people to stand up and say something. The community, do you think the community speaks out more now than ever? Because we, you know, when these elders were younger, they were taught, shh, quiet.
Right.
And, you know, don't say anything. Do you think that we advocate enough now to encourage more people to speak up?
I think so. I mean, I think that the outreach that we do continues to send the same message that we are here and we're here to help and it's okay. They have a voice. And we're here to help them have a voice, you know, to let them know that there is help out there, that they don't have to live in situations like this, that there is something else, you know, to help improve their, you know, living in their home.
And how do we continue to help them? So you have done your intake and you've talked to them.
Right.
Do you keep checking in? What else do you do to continue to help that person hopefully come out of what's going on and continue to lead a good, fulfilling, healthy life?
And part of it is making community connections and also offering resources and education. So part of what we do is, you know, come up with a service plan, and it could include any kind of intervention. It could be money management. It could be, you know, stay-at-home care services at Old Colony, where someone's coming in to offer them, you know, assistance in the home with cleaning or laundry or shopping. It may be them attending an adult day health center where they aren't in the situation, you know, 7 days a week, and they go to the adult day health center a couple days a week to give them a break, you know, from the situation in the home. It could be, you know, linking them to a volunteer, like I said, with money management to help them pay their bills if they're struggling. You know, to the most restrictive action, which could include court intervention for us, you know, which could include getting them a substitute decision maker if they lack decisional capacity and there is nobody else to assist them. A lot of times in those types of cases, there is no family member that's appropriate, or the family member is part of the issue as to why we're going to court, you know, and, you know, the person requires that type of most restrictive intervention. We don't do that in all of our cases. Those are the most restrictive ones that we do.
Okay. I know you also do money management. Can you describe a little bit of what that means and what the program is?
The money management program is a great program, and it's run with a lot of volunteers and a lot of assistance to allow our eldest to stay in the home. Some of them just require assistance with writing their checks and making sure that they're organized and getting their bills paid on time. So what it is they get a volunteer and they train a volunteer, and then they match that volunteer with the consumer, and they will go out once or twice a month to help them pay their bills. And they've developed a strong relationship with them over time. Some of our volunteers are with the same consumer for 7-8 years. And they just have that connection, and they've allowed that, by them volunteering and giving their time, have allowed that elder to remain in the home, you know, and stay and get their bills paid. It's a great program, and we're always looking for volunteers. So if anybody's interested, please call us. You know, the other piece is it's a kind of a win-win situation, you know, for the elder and the volunteer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We keep going back to, we want to keep people in their home.
Yes.
And I think statistically, that's always been an issue. People think if they say something, they're going to be taken out of their home.
Yep.
If they fall, they're going to be taken out of their home. And I just don't think we say it enough.
Right.
But I think it's a real point that we need to definitely hit home, that we don't ever want to take somebody out of their home.
No.
We always want people to stay home, even if it means bringing services into them.
Yes.
And there are lots of options for those services.
Yes. There's a lot of different programs that Old Colony runs, a lot of different programs that are available in the community that are wraparound services to assist them. You know, if they have mass health or, again, stay-at-home care services, there's a lot of different programs that people don't know that they're eligible for to be able to stay in the home.
What does wraparound services mean?
Like, for instance, we have, you know, the senior care options program, which is run through the Mass Health funding, where they have a lot of services, you know, daily services for the consumer if they get Mass Health, and some have behavioral health services attached to it. So that's what I mean when I say wraparound services. They try and do everything that they can to meet the consumer's needs through that program.
Through that program. What else does Old Colony offer? I guess I do want to ask that question, but I actually want to step back and ask a different question. You do educational programs with people that are in abusive situations. Are some of those programs general education, like we have different programs that Old Colony Elder Services brings to the center at different times.
Right.
Are some of those type of programs, or are they specific to situations?
I think it depends on the situation. I mean, obviously, we try and, tap into any of the resources that any of the Council on Aging's offer, as well as that Old Colony offer in terms of the protective service situation.
Okay.
So for instance, it could be a situation where an elder is self-neglecting and not accepting medical treatment for diabetes. One of the things that we may offer is, okay, well, let's get some education about what diabetes means. It's a chronic disease, so should they participate in the chronic self-disease management program? For instance, or is it an abusive situation where the person's being emotionally abused and they need counseling and they need domestic violence support groups?
Right.
Is it a hoarding situation where they could benefit from going through the Buried in Treasures group? So it runs the gamut in terms of we try and look at that specific situation and figure out what resources can we tap into to help affect change for that abusive situation. The majority of the issues for elder abuse, the underlying issues, are mental health issues and substance abuse, which everybody in the community are dealing with either themselves or has a family member that they're dealing with or trying to help with those issues. So we're trying to provide resources to the consumer if they themselves are suffering from substance abuse or mental health, or their family member, their caregiver might be. Some of the resources we may also tap into could be the Family Caregiver Support Program. If they're caring for somebody that has Alzheimer's disease, being a caregiver is a tough job. And, being able to support that person and allow
24/7.
allow them to get resources, from the Alzheimer's Association and education, is a huge help.
I lost my train of thought. That's okay. I am amazed, but that's not all Old Colony Elder Services does.
No, we do a lot of things.
Yeah. I can't even describe all the things you do.
I know.
So, what else do you do?
Well, we have information and referral. We have, again, the State Home Care Program. We have a benefits advisor to assist with some insurance questions if they arise in terms of clients that we serve.
Okay.
We have, again, the SCO program, which we offer, money management. We have the volunteer center that we just opened in Plymouth. It's a drop-in center for volunteers if they want to, take advantage of those opportunities to assist consumers.
I think we share some of those
Home-delivered
volunteers.
meals,
Yeah.
yeah.
And do you find that from some of the home-delivered meals you get reports that things are changing?
Yes, home-delivered meals is a huge help in terms of getting to the home of a consumer every day. Sometimes it might be that person's only visitor, and having those eyes and ears is a huge help. Some of the volunteers, I think this year, were honored, at our volunteer luncheon to show that they really had affected the consumers' lives by finding them in need of medical treatment because their meal delivery went and they found, unfortunately, the elder on the floor and had to call 911. But what would have happened to that person had they not had that service? So
We don't want to think about that.
no, it's a huge help in terms of, eyeballing somebody on a daily basis, whether it be to offer them the meal, to see if they need medical treatment, or to see if there's a change. The person who does the meal delivery is a huge help, and it's a volunteer, and they may see that there's some issues. If somebody starts to decline and may need more services.
I think we see that a lot. We have some of the most incredible Meals on Wheels drivers in Plymouth, and they give so much of themselves, but they know those people so well.
We're thankful to have them.
We're lucky. We're lucky. Volunteers are,
Yes.
they're a gift. They're a real gift. They're a real gift. So if you would like to walk with us on June 21st, we will be meeting at the Center for Active Living at 11 a.m. You will get a t-shirt and a sign so we can draw lots of attention to ourselves. And then we're going to be bused down to the waterfront and walk the length of the waterfront and come back. And we will then have, we will be honoring some people and having some snacks.
Yeah.
Please feel free to call the center at 508-830-4230. We will have phone numbers on the bottom of the screen for both these events. One for the 800.
1-800-922-2275.
Thank you.
It's okay, the hotline number.
The hotline number
Yep.
for elder abuse, as well as to walk in our walk. I think we need to keep people, I think everyone needs to remember, if you see something, say something. We can't say that enough to enough people.
Right.
You know your neighbors, you know your friends, you know your family. If they're not acting the way they should be, or you think they should be, let somebody know.
Right.
They may not be able to speak for themselves
Right.
out of fear, out of all of those things, but other people can speak for them. So Terry, I would like to thank you again for being on my show.
Thank you for
It's
having
been
me.
wonderful. Hopefully we'll see everybody watching our show down at the waterfront, June 21st at 11 a.m.
Yep.
And have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.